Most of the time, people make decisions without even looking at the data. It's just gut-based decisions. There's some overtime and night shifts they pull, prepare a couple of PowerPoint slides from sales, a couple of slides from marketing, a couple of slides from production. Then they meet in a monthly review meeting. 3 people talk about revenue, and there is 4 different numbers about the revenue. That's the reality in still most mid-sized businesses. Mm-hmm. If you need a new dashboard or report, how do you go about this?
I don't know.
See?
Okay, I'll be honest, I don't know.
See, and that's the problem. Why today mid-sized businesses can actually afford having really good analytics systems, and it's AI. It has completely changed the game concerning BI. I need to be honest. I mean, I've been in business for 35 years, and the BI projects, a lot of them actually fail. And there are several reasons why they fail. I'm actually writing about this in my book.
What are some of the main ones that really turn into a complete sunk cost?
What this disconnect between what you are getting as output in form of dashboards and reports and...
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So normally I see you and you're always like this on a Zoom meeting. Oh my God, I'm so frustrated. And you could just sense the frustration. So I think that's the best way to introduce you, is the frustration that you have when you interact with people or things that you don't understand or that they don't understand you. So for those that don't know, who is Feliks?
Feliks is the founder of Multibase,
Mm-hmm.
and we are an IT company focusing on business intelligence. What we do is we implement state-of-the-art reporting and analytics systems for mid-sized companies. So I'm a data guy, and I've been dealing with data all my business life long.
I think it's fascinating because I'm very new to BI. Now, my interaction with BI comes from my wife's work because she was had a BI for a long time, and I didn't understand what it meant. And for years, I was like, I don't know what this means. What does this mean? What does it mean? And I thought it was interesting is every time that they were trying to explain this big concept, all you're doing is disseminating it down to being able to make decisions. And that's one of the things that you do so well is help leaders, executives, make sound decisions. And that's a rare thing for people to do because it's a complex thing. There's a lot of moving parts. But a lot of times people make decisions with bad data and it becomes a bad decision.
Well, it's even worse. Most of the time people make decisions without even looking at the data. It's just gut-based decisions.
That's how most leaders operate both companies. You see it all the time.
Right. And there is, see, if you look at the big companies, large corporations, it's not that bad there. Okay. And it's not that bad because they can afford having BI teams, sometimes dozens of people, sometimes even hundreds of people, who are in charge of preparing their data so that then they get the insight that would then lead to decisions and actions.
And these teams, though, their full-time job is just basically collecting the action items that are happening within the company and organizing so that you know what's actually happening, but they're not actually doing work. Their job is to actually collate the data, organize the data, present the data. Well, but for smaller companies, how do they actually make their decisions other than by what's in their gut?
For smaller companies, it's still, they've got a couple of Google Sheets or Excel sheets, have a couple of analysts or VAs collecting the data for full month. And then at the beginning of next month, they may have a bit of transparency of last month. For their management meetings, then there's some overtime and night shifts they pull. Prepare a couple of PowerPoint slides from sales, a couple of slides from marketing, a couple of slides from production. Then they meet in a monthly review meeting. 3 people talk about revenue, and there is 4 different numbers about the revenue. That's the reality in still most mid-sized businesses. Mm-hmm. And the difference between large corporations and mid-sized businesses is mid-sized businesses cannot afford, or let me put it this way, up until recently, they could not afford a team that would prepare all these insights for them. Now, the game has significantly changed, but I think we're going to talk about this a bit later.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously changed because of the advancement of technology. But for someone like you and Multibase, it's been doing this for many years. I mean, the company's been around for how long?
35 years.
And from my understanding, you've had clients that have lasted decades. How long have your clients been with you?
You won't believe that we've got 2 clients who we've been serving for 33 years.
Most businesses don't even last that long. Yeah. So, but how do you continue to add value to a company that's been around for that long?
So that we continuously provide them insights, valuable insights for different functional parts of their company that lead to decisions and actions that then end up in 4, 5, 6, sometimes even 7 figures. That's it. I mean, you don't generate the value for the customers; they won't keep you for 33 years.
Of course, yeah, and that's what we see a lot of businesses do it. I think what's really cool now is like for someone like yourself that's been doing this for 3+ decades, almost going on 4, and you've seen so much. Finally, the technology is catching up to the work that you were doing 2-3 decades ago. Now the technology is actually catching up to your intellectual infrastructure to where you could actually deploy this.
Well, the technology is just one part. What is also interesting for me to observe is the mindset.
What do you mean by that?
Well, most of the people still don't have the data, what I call the data mindset. They just don't connect the data with the decisions. The reporting that they have got, it's about visualizing the data. They just think, yeah, we need reporting because for whatever
that's
reason.
What they say we're supposed to need.
See, what they mostly the reporting is all about someone preparing, collating the data from different sources, putting it in Excel sheets. Those Excel, this is what then IT does. The data analysts do. Then they pass these Excel sheets to VAs who know or believe to know what their bosses need for their meetings. Then they create nice charts in PowerPoint, and then the discussions in management meetings happen, but the decisions are not being made based on these reports that these teams are creating.
So in business, though, you have like inputs, process, outputs. There's a lot of work going on with all this data, but if the data is bad, that would be a bad input, right? And then how do you make good data? Like, how do you make a good decision if it's bad data? How do you know if it's bad data? And I'm asking the question selfishly because I struggle with I think I make good decisions. How do I know I make good decisions? Well, like a lagging indicator of my decisions from months ago and quarters before turned into good things. And then when they're bad things, I basically kind of like brush them off and be like, well, that we didn't have the right data. How do you know that you actually have good data so that you can make good decisions?
Well, first of all, you need to connect the two things, data and decisions, right?
So how do you connect that?
You connect them so that you integrate reporting into decision-making processes. Okay? You really make sure that your daily huddles, weekly sure fixes, monthly review meetings, strategic quarterly planning meetings have got, as a part of them, you look at dashboards and reports that really provide you the insights that are answering the questions people have got in these meetings. Now, I already mentioned 4 different situations, right? Where decisions
we
are
do
being
those
made
every single day, but I don't think we bring the data to those meetings all the time.
See, and here's the thing. What happens? Well, people believed companies. We need a company dashboard.
We do. Yeah, we have one. Yeah.
Right.
We do our leadership meetings.
It's a company dashboard.
We don't even start our meeting unless the dashboard's filled out.
Right. But the problem is what people then try to do is put everything on on this dashboard. Okay. And this dashboard is for everyone. And with
this going to be a therapy session? Or I thought we were just trying to talk about, I was trying to learn. I didn't know I was going to get attacked. All right. Got it. Okay.
Now, okay. So see, I'm a designer. I design data stories. I design dashboards and reports. And there's 2 design principles. Basic design principles I follow. Number 1, not everything on one dashboard.
Okay.
And number 2, not one dashboard for everyone. Connecting to what I just said, okay? I mentioned 4 different situations where decisions are being made, actions are being taken, right? Well, you'll need bad news for you. You'll need different reports on dashboards for these meetings. I see. This is what I mean with data mindset.
But what I struggle with in our company, and what I see in other companies too, is the amount of time it takes. So if we're trying to basically prepare a dashboard for our daily huddles, and each division has, I would call them like KPIs or things that they need to hit on a regular basis that they need to be aligned with, right? And you want to make sure that they're on track. Are you on track? Are you off track? Or are you way off track and you can't get yourself back on? We need to know red, yellow, or green. Weekly meetings, what does that guild look like? What does that division look like? I get all of that. But the amount of manpower it takes to roll all of those data sets up to where the individual silos and divisions can make decisions based upon that information is sometimes at the leadership level more than we think it's worth, and we feel like it slows down the work. And the goal for us is all about speed.
Well, see, here's one of the major problems that, let's say, companies of your size are struggling with. They do not invest, or they have not invested in preparing the data for reporting in the first place.
So that's a hard word for me to hear, because my life is all about being prepared. But if it's like as a coach, it's really simple. The more prepared you are, the more confidence you have.
Well, yeah, but then connect this with what I just
which
told
is
you.
decision making, which makes sense.
I mean,
we're gonna have a therapy session. Great. Okay, cool. I need to change my drink from coffee to something else. Go ahead.
See, the better your data is prepared at what we call backhand, okay? The more freedom and choice you will have on the front end, because then it's going to be very, very easy to say, okay, so for my daily huddles, what do I really need? Okay. Well, it also obviously depends on what roles.
Of course, yeah, because we have different divisions and guilds. Absolutely. In so like our engineering guild has very specific things, error rate, speed.
Remember, not one dashboard for everyone. Okay.
And I need to see things differently than Kane, my CFO. Like
but of course,
he's more analytical, and I need to see things from a visual standpoint.
Well, one role needs the insights more from the strategic perspective.
Yes.
The other role needs insights more from the operational perspective. Okay. And this is
like
where
Beth would look at it and be like operational efficiency.
See, this is what you told me before. Oh, we've got a company dashboard. I won't comment on this anymore. Right?
It's good. This is good.
Yeah, but see, this is fundamentals. And you asked me data mindset, what I mean by data mindset. So part of the data mindset is, listen, I mean, you need to have data prepared for reporting. I mean, you're preparing for your coaching sessions. You're preparing for your meeting.
Everything to me is about preparation.
Well, okay. Why are you not preparing for decision making?
We do in the work, but that makes sense.
Why are you not preparing
when I look at when we look at sport, we're looking at scenarios, right? And like you look at game theory, you're just trying to figure out what are the the opportunities, or like how do we attack a defense? In business, how do we attack a competition, or how do we actually attack an open market? So the preparation for that is the strategy that leans into it. But most of those things, when you look at it at a holistic role within the business, is based upon the skill or competency of the individual in that role that we then trust, and we only get the data as a lagging indicator. How do we make the data be driving the daily insights with speed? I have found in a lot of companies that we go into, consulting, strategy-wise, or even my own, the work to collate the data to where we could make these decisions quickly takes so long that it slows down the work.
Well, see, there are two things here. Number one, what kind of data you need for decision making, but that's not the primary question. The primary question is, what kind of questions do you need to ask in a specific situation for a specific role?
Sure.
So that they can then start making decisions and taking actions. We've got a very clear framework for approaching this kind of cases. So, but that's one part of the equation. The second part of the equation, you need to have the data. And not only this, the data needs to be properly prepared for this kind of reporting, because you're Data resides in your ERP system, in your CRM system, in your planning system, in your MES system, whatever industry you're in.
We struggle with a lot of businesses, and even ours, is those actually communicating to each other.
They never do. I mean, these transactional systems were primarily created for supporting daily transactional business. Okay, taking in orders, managing inventories, managing the sales pipeline, and so on. They were not designed to store the data so that it can be reported on. Well, that's why people or companies like we are come in the game, say, oh, you'd like to do reporting? You know what? One thing that needs to be done, your data needs to be collated from all these different systems and put it in the form that it can be analyzed for. It can be reported
and quickly, though. I want to be able to see it and know if it's something.
Of course.
Like, I laugh because you talk about, like, there's good dashboards and bad dashboards. And I think about, like, okay, well, to me, the only thing that makes a good dashboard and a bad dashboard is, how much friction do I have to think to read it? And a lot of times when I look at, like, an Excel spreadsheet or there's so much friction in reading some of these dashboards.
Now you're talking. See, let me translate this into my language. Okay. If it takes you more than 10 seconds to get an insight based on on a dashboard or report, it's useless. It's actually even worse.
Well, the friction score to work with, like, that report, I need someone to explain it to me. And I would like to think I'm a pretty smart guy, but I shouldn't need anyone to explain, like, this on a regular basis. So what happens is we look at things in order to scale anything, it needs to be simplified. You remove the complex so that you need to have speed. And then the other thing is there needs to be clarity. So clarity is what drives speed. So the more you take all of these kind of, like, little pieces out, the better it is. The problem is then what we find out too is, like, there's always this missing piece that's over here that didn't get updated. And then there's, like, well, that doesn't report that. So, like, our payment processor doesn't always like, communicate really well, or doesn't report on churn really well. And then we have to manually go and do that.
So let me ask you a question. When you need a new dashboard to report, right?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you go about it?
So for us, ClickUp is our single source of truth, but that's internal in the business, but we don't have that connected to finance, and we don't have that connected to other things. So we work for the individual person that's doing that, and their job is to, like, organize the report so that we can look at it at the financial level, whether it be a P&L or 13-week cash flow. Now, I don't handle the financial side, so it's not that big of a deal. But when it comes to, like, lead generation or marketing, if I'm in the growth side, right? So we look at a labs board, like leads, appointments, presentations, and sales. I need to be able to see that. It is very binary. It's a yes and no.
Hang on. My question was slightly different. If you need a new dashboard to report, how do you go about this?
I don't know.
See?
Okay, like, I'm being honest. I don't know.
See, and that's the problem. That's where this disconnect is that you were talking about before, where you said, see, I'm looking at this Excel sheets or whatever report they gave me, and I don't know what to do with it.
But is that, like, again, I'm not trying to make an excuse for our size of a company, but I look at that and, like, okay, well, the human capital that it would cost to actually have someone that does that would be, like, very expensive. When I look at, like, huge organizations or companies that I would do consulting with that have this, they have a team of people around them that are almost arguing about the data to make sure it's accurate to then bring it to the table. Is this viable for small and mid-sized companies to actually have the same insights to their daily work that a larger company has?
It is.
Today?
It is.
Or did it always be there and we just didn't know it? Because we're not taught this in entrepreneur school, right?
No. There are two things here, okay? Number one, and we need to come to number one later because it's super important, is how you get to these dashboards and reports, okay? Remind me, we need to come back. Now,
well, I don't know the answer, so I think we'll go back to it.
Right. Now, what you're asking, the second super important topic is that possible today for mid-sized companies or smaller businesses? Well, here's good news and bad news. The bad news, it's been actually possible for quite a while. And one of the reasons why the mid-sized companies didn't really do it is, again, data mindset.
We just don't prioritize things that we don't always understand.
Exactly.
And at the executive level,
if you don't know what systems are capable of, you don't even think about this. That's what I call data literacy. Okay. So this is changing. I mean, there's a lot of posts and videos and trainings.
I think
and
what's
even
happening,
senior management is starting to get it.
Well, so I'm saying, like at the executive level or senior levels, I think we're starting to realize that data drives decisions. We're starting to realize that bad data makes us look bad because it immediately shows that we don't know what we're doing. And then we also, for a while, probably used it as a cop-out of like, I made a bad decision because I had bad data. But I didn't take the ownership of, I made a bad decision because I didn't fundamentally say we need good foundations to create good data.
Well,
and that's a decision that I like, you start it and you got to have to go through that emotional process of maturity in a smaller size company. But at this point where we are, it's inexcusable. So that's why we have a relationship, but that's why there's a learning curve too. And whereas I have other people in the business at the engineering level, they're data driven. Or I have other people like Kane, who's financially driven, and he manages that. But we need to make sure that all of our divisions, from growth to operations to engineering, communicate together so we understand what the throughput is and what we could actually handle as a company. And this is where I think good dashboards help us in the boardroom to make good decisions. But we're definitely at a position where we don't even know what good looks like. So in the AI space today, you have to tell them what good looks like. If not, they're like, I don't like the output. Well, the reality is like, we still don't know what good looks like.
Well, and we're going to get to that point later. What I also wanted to mention back on the topic, why today mid-sized businesses can actually afford having really good analytic systems, and it's AI. It has completely changed the game concerning BI. I need to be honest. I mean, I've been in business for 35 years, and the BI projects, a lot of them actually fail. And there are several reasons why they fail. I'm actually writing about this in my book. But
what are some of the main ones that really turn into like a complete sunk cost?
What this disconnect between what you are getting as output in form of dashboards and reports, and on one side and on the other side, decision-making processes. There's a very, very clear disconnect here. And what leads to having dashboards and reports, building backend systems, building data warehouses, data lakes, and everything, data pipelines, everything that is required for this, costs you 5, 6, sometimes 7 figures. And you still make decisions, gut-based decisions, and you still come up with a topic, we've got a bad data. I mean, to be honest, bad data, we'll never have perfect data. But if you kind of do a bit of inside discovery, you do a bit of reporting on how good your data is, you can fix your bad data within a couple of months.
Seriously, that quickly.
Seriously.
So that's the interesting thing, because most of the time these BI conversations with companies, they're like multi-year projects.
They are. I mean, see, I actually claim, why do we have 2 customers for 33 years? Okay. I say, I joke, but actually it's not another joke. There's only 2 reasons why BI would stop. Number 1, you cannot or you don't want to spend money on it anymore. And number 2, you ran out of ideas.
Well, I don't ever run out of ideas.
Yeah. See,
I don't run out of ideas, and I don't run out of questions.
But here it is. Do you stop making decisions and taking actions in your
Never.
business?
You can't.
Well,
your business dies.
How would then BI stop? See, you don't connect.
That is the dot we don't connect. I agree.
You don't connect reporting with decision making.
And that's where you think it starts, is the mindset.
That is the biggest problem. Well, okay, then there's still let me put it this way, variations of problems, set of problems where BI teams just really don't approach implementing BI use cases in the right way. So it takes, as you said, 12 to 18 months to build BI infrastructure. The problem is that business doesn't wait
No.
for having a report.
Yeah, exactly.
They keep making decisions and taking actions,
And
right?
the difficulty is that I heard this quote and I'm like, man, that resonates with me. So I was with Phil Jones in New York, who's an incredible speaker, and he says, there's always the business that you're running versus the business that you're growing.
Yeah.
And it's always true. They're always true. And it's like, you have an obligation to the business you're running, but you also have an obligation to the business that you're growing. And those sometimes take different mindsets. Does the way you build a dashboard have the evolution ability, or is it going to stay static? And then it's like, all right, we have to restart this over again. Because I think those become the fears of businesses with the lift that it takes. How much work is this going to be?
I mean, there's no question about it. It's a lot of work. But, what is it worth for you? What is the value of knowing? I mean,
yeah, the return on work there seems like it will probably be one of the better ROIs.
I mean, just think about it. If you could detect an issue in your business, in marketing or in production or whichever functional area.
My key is how can I identify a problem before it becomes something that I can't fix?
Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to get to. If you can identify these problems before they become crisis, okay, well, that's virtually invaluable for you. Now, your question how you can do that through transparency of the performance of that functional area, right? And for this, you need to have the right mindset. And let me come back to this very topic that I wanted to touch on before, and it's how you approach designing and implementing your dashboards and reports. You were very honest. I don't know. See, that's a problem. Okay, we've got a framework for this. We call it DECIDE, the DECIDE framework. It's
kind of makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, right? I won't even explain the acronym. It's an acronym, okay? But the framework is all about, okay, Cav, you need a new dashboard or report, right? And the first thing what we would do is say, well, in which part of your business, for which part of your business would you like to have these tools?
So let's start with growth, because to me that makes the most sense for a business. Is they always want to grow, so it's going to be lead generation and marketing.
Okay, so you say in lead generation and marketing, then my team would first question this. Say, oh, is that really part of your business where there's the most leverage with transparency? Okay. All we can do, we can provide transparency.
Sure.
Okay. We cannot help you come up with strategies and things like this, but we can provide you transparency over your performance. Okay. Well, we can do a bit more, but we'll discuss that later. So as the first question we would ask you, then say, listen, is it really your marketing where there is the biggest leverage in your business? I say, well, maybe it's sales. Okay. Anyway, so you got that. That's the first discussion we have. And that's the first D of the DECIDE framework. Discover. Okay. So then we agree it's marketing. We are data people, but still we ask some questions, sometimes uncomfortable questions, but we want to make you think. Because what we're going to do, we're going to be investing a lot of work and your money in developing the dashboards and reports. So what we want to make sure is that you get the tools, that you use them on daily or weekly or monthly, whatever basis, that will help you make decisions and take actions. First thing. Then we say, okay, so it's marketing. Now, who in marketing is going to work with these dashboards and reports? Okay.
Yep. I have
your whole team.
Well, I would say the whole team should be able to see it. The person that's driving the strategy behind that would be like our CMO, Diana. She's in charge.
There we go. Okay. So,
she's in charge of making sure that number reports back to our leadership dashboard.
Okay. See, now the DECIDE framework. First, we'll discover. E is engage. Okay. Diana, your CMO. Great. Okay. So now we know her role. And I say, in what kind of situations would he use these dashboards and reports? In their daily huddle? In her weekly jour fix? Whatever? It's different.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to look at basically like weekly ad spend right away. She's going to make sure that that's aligned to the daily action that she needs to take.
So what you're telling me, it's going to be weekly jour fixes, whatever they call,
weekly
right?
and daily, making sure that they're within a range.
Okay.
Yeah, because like you can imagine, like, you know, you're not spending enough money to bump the needle, or you're spending too much, and then you're actually not in the right margins. So she needs to see this on a daily basis.
So we've got the situations for Diana in marketing. Okay. Now we come to C, which is clarify. They will sit down with Diana and say, listen, Diana, for your weekly and daily reviews, what kind of questions would you like to have answered?
Okay.
What kind of information do you need in order to make decisions and take actions?
Okay.
You get the process? Okay. I says, well, you said, I would like to know what did you say?
We want to know like ad spend per channel lead. We want to know, like, is there any sort of like attribution that we could actually factor in?
See, these are the things that we collect. Okay. And then we ask a very nasty question. Diana, how do you know the numbers are good? And then the question comes.
My fault.
And then the question, what do you mean good? So, how do you know it's good?
Well, I think we have forecasting, right, based upon historical data that we have, but we also have a capacity in the current operations of the company of what we can handle. And then we align that, in my opinion, we are aligning that based upon initiatives that we have. So for instance, like, we probably couldn't take on, 13 clients in one project, but like in another product, right? If we're running an SEO product for a business, we could take on 20 if they're the right fit, and we could just onboard them and it's great. But if we took on like building a KPI or building a personal brand website, we probably couldn't take on 20.
Yeah.
So sometimes we get too much in the wrong area, and then we have to throttle down.
But see, that's what we then discuss with Diana. I say, okay, what kind of questions would you like to have answered for your weekly and daily reviews? She gives us a set of 20 questions. I say, all right, I might be a bit too much to start it. What are the 3 to 5 most important questions that would immediately move the needle for you? This, and this.
How much are we spending? How many leads are coming in? How many appointments do we have?
Oh, great. Again, how do we know it's good? I says, yeah, Cav gave me some targets.
Basically.
Right? Okay.
Therapy session number 2 today. Go ahead.
Okay. So that's what we do in the clarify step. Okay. And then the illustrate step comes. What we then do, before any coding happens, we go and design mock-ups of the dashboards and reports that would give answers to the questions that we just...
Like a blueprint. You're architecting something.
Well, we'll show her how the answers to the questions she has got in that situation would look like.
What happens if I don't understand that?
Well, then
the reason why I say that is because I look at something differently, and it looks different to me.
Excellent.
It's like art.
Excellent.
I love art, so I go to museums, but the interpretation's different.
Yeah, but same to say, you don't understand? Then I, as a designer, and I'm a head designer at Multibase, I failed. Well, I didn't. I just learned one way.
It doesn't work.
How you
Thomas
don't understand.
Jefferson.
Okay, now, let me do it. So you don't understand this table of data. How about if I provide you a chart? Okay? Oh, is that better? See, I wouldn't even give her first table. I would always give her first chart.
Why that? Why chart versus table?
One picture says more than 1,000 numbers.
But if you're talking like Kane, he's really good on the number side, and he lives and dies on that.
Yeah, see, every once in a while...
He always laughs. He goes, I tell him about these numbers all the time, but I show them a stinking picture, and they all understand it.
See, I've got like 10% of my clients. I say, no, forget about these charts. Just give me the data. Give me the numbers.
He's like that.
I see the numbers in the table as well.
So you get to see through the lines, and you see the real picture.
Anyway, so what we do, we design the mock-ups. We paint them. And then we go to Diana?
Yeah, Diana.
Right? I say, listen, you told me there's 5 questions that you would have to have answered in your daily meetings, right? Would that look good as an answer? So, oh, yeah. Oh, this one. You know what? I would probably need another chart here and another number here. Fine, we'll add that.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's back and forth, 2-3 sessions or a couple of sessions. Then Diana says, yeah, that's kind of a dashboard I want. And then we go to second D, fifth step.
It's interesting you say that, is that as leaders, we always design the dashboards that we want for them. Is that a problem?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be just being transparent with you.
There you
like,
go.
I say, like, this is what you're reading.
There you go. Well, let me put it this way. You give us all the inputs, and we then design this with you.
That's different. Yeah.
Okay.
I could see how that would immediately change the way we look at our own work.
Okay. Now, let's go to the end of the framework. Then the fifth step is D for develop. Well, then, only then, technical stuff starts happening. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What happens on the back end? What we need to do is automate all this data collection, where we were talking about before, right? Where we said, listen, we spend so much time and energy on just collating the data.
Yeah.
Well, that needs to be automated.
See, we always felt that automation by human is better, where we give them a process and we want them to know the data. So therefore that they have to actually pull it out and make sure it goes into another environment.
There's absolutely no reason why people should pull manually the data from systems and manually consolidate them and put them in some Excel sheets so that some other person can then go and take those Excel sheets and put them in PowerPoint slides and so on. There's absolutely no reason for that. It's stupid. Plain stupid. Why
I appreciate that we're friends. I appreciate that. This is going to be great.
Yeah, but you wanted this. Anyway, so this is...
No, it's not so much that I wanted it. It's that I know that fundamentally, as I look at life through the lens of sport, I cannot have the confidence to compete if I'm not prepared. And I think there's a gap in my preparation right now because of an area where I'm weak, and I hide my weaknesses as best as I can so that I could just showcase my strengths. And the reality is my opportunities in my business and my life are getting so big that those are going to get exposed. And therefore I need to be able to have the right people in my corner to say, hey, you don't even need to be strong here. We've already got your back and this is already done.
Well, see, and I mean, there's one-to-one parallel to preparation of the data. If you would like to make decisions based on the data, Jesus, first need to make sure that you prepare it. Okay? And then, that's just one part, big part. The second part is, see, in the I step, right, illustrate, we created mock-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those still needs to be then turned into functionable dashboards and reports that you can pull up on a screen, okay? Set your filters, drill down, drill through, drill across, okay? So that you get the insights that we were talking about, okay? Now, with this, we have created functional dashboards and reports. We automated everything on the back end so that data from all kinds of different operational systems that you got really gets prepared, put in the form that it's needed for analysis in an automated way. Okay, so you can do your reporting not once a month, but every hour if needed. Then we put...
I think to stop you there is, it's not so much once a month or every hour. It's that what happens is as much as we have a really strong cadence as a company, and I'm a big believer of this, like, you know, sport has a practice schedule and it's got a game schedule, and then we break down into team meetings and individual meetings, and that's great. But what often happens is that we need to make a call on something on Tuesday, even though the meeting is on Friday when we would do that next thing. But there's a situation that's happening on Tuesday that we need to know. And what happens is we don't want to wait. So we're using last week's data to make a decision on Tuesday, when you're saying we should have that right away.
See, that's exactly what I'm saying. If your data is properly prepared, then the challenge is only create a couple of dashboards and reports from Tuesday till Friday. Okay. And that is possible today. Okay. Well, it's even more. And we're not talking so far about the major impact AI has got on the whole thing.
This is the fundamentals that we don't even have set up today.
There you go.
Yeah. And we have some of them, but they're definitely options for growth. I also, not even our company, but the companies that we go in and we do like strategic consulting with, even from my standpoint, strategy is about removing things, not adding. And the issue is most of the time is like they get a dashboard and then they just want to build more stuff to it. And it's all about being able to be more clear. So it's about removing things.
Okay, so let me finish. There's a last step. I mean, up to the fifth step, the only thing we did is make sure all the data is being properly prepared. The data pipelines are automated. So we are extracting the manual work of your people. Okay. And then we provided functional dashboards and reports or chatbots, which is a separate topic, right? Now, that doesn't bring you anything if you don't make these tools part of your decision-making processes.
Yes.
And that's the last step. And it's called embed. Okay?
Not just into the work, but into the thinking, which is probably the mindset.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. So what we do, okay. Well, first, we'll train Diana how to properly use this dashboard report. Okay? She knows how to pull it up. She knows how to use filters. If there's something she doesn't understand, or people who might look at this dashboard, they don't understand, she knows which button to press so that there's...
And then she teaches me because she's better at it than I am, I'll tell you that.
Right? Right?
Very much so.
But then say, all right, Diana, how is that going to change now your daily huddle?
Which is what we're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because sometimes these huddles in meetings, they become so repetitive that they don't really help.
See, a well-designed huddle, what do you do first? A dashboard that was designed for that huddle. You look at it and say, oh, this is good, this is good, this is not good. What are we going to do about it? Oh, 1, 2, 3, huddle over. And that's it. And this, see, I started with the question, how you go about designing your dashboards and reports.
Yes.
Well, how? You said you don't know. And then people see, what usually happens is, okay, we're going to hire a young guy or gal who knows how to spell Power BI. And this
it's pretty funny. I just see what you're going with. That's pretty bad.
Excel, we heard you should not really use Excel for reporting. We still do, but we should not really. So we'll hire this guy. They know how to spell Power BI. And we'll have them create a dashboard. And you tell them, you know what? We need an overview. Okay? And then the things that might be important, we need some details. And they go and develop a dashboard. Watch a couple of YouTube videos. Okay? How really attractive dashboards would look like. And this is where you get your dashboards and reports where you look at it and say, now what?
Normally what we're doing is we're taking, and this is just historically, because they've evolved. And I would imagine that I think after this conversation, there's going to go back to some discovery. I think we're going to start over a little bit into a true discovery, because normally what happens is we're taking what we like or what we want to have, or an environment that I go, man, that's how you run a huddle. Let's try to mimic that. And then that's how I like to run a leadership meeting. Let's try to mimic that. And then we say, all right, cool, what dashboard are they using? And we do it. But what happens is that business is different than our business. Now, I think fundamentally there's a lot of really good pieces, but I think there's some missing pieces.
That's why this is where our framework kicks in, and the clarify step. I say, okay, what kind of questions are to be answered in our daily huddle?
Now, interesting, because so in my work in sport, exercise science is the idea of studying the human body, both kinesiology and biomechanics, to give you an outcome, right? And whether it's force production or load management or injury prevention, whatever it may be, there's people that do research studies and they say this or this, and it's like this hypothesis that we're going to try this beta group here, and then we're going to do this other group here, and then we're going to put them in two controlled environments, and we're going to get an outcome. But I've pushed back on data science from a sports science standpoint for many years, 2+ decades. I've pushed back on data scientists for this one reason, is that they're having a controlled environment. And I would prefer to say, hey, why don't you watch what I do and document everything I do? And then we identify patterns. Because if you're only looking at it in these controlled environments, you're not thinking about all these other variables. And in reality, there's something that we don't know about that's actually in the work that we're doing that is not being like correlated to the reason why someone got hurt or the reason why they're having such great results. And there's something that we're missing. So just watch what we do and analyze it. Just like the human body evolves,
I mean,
there's definitely, I would say, things that like we come to you with a discovery and we say, this is the information, that's good information. And then the business shifts and now there's this missing piece.
Cav, as long as you've got the data around and about it, then all these things can be, and if you ask me, should be done. So I was a bit surprised they said you pushed that back.
Yeah.
Why? Because you didn't have the data? Or you didn't trust the data scientists? Or you didn't trust the outcome?
I think it's a bias for decision making on the idea that like, well, I'm making good decisions because I'm the executive, therefore I'm guiding the ship and we're going to put square peg in a round hole. We're going to make it work.
I mean, there's a beautiful movie called Moneyball.
Yeah.
Well,
true.
But it's all about data. It's all about data.
What about the things you can't measure?
Sorry.
Okay, not your wheelhouse.
That's sorry.
So do you feel like
there's a really great German saying? I'll first say it in German and then I'll translate it. Miss es oder vergiss es, which means measure it or forget it.
Okay.
Okay. So if you can't measure,
then why are you doing it?
Right. Well, okay, yeah, that's kind of, if you can't measure, then you should make sure that you'll find a way to measure it.
Okay. How can you do that?
By collecting the data.
And where does that data come from?
Either someone punches it in,
okay,
or you got sensors.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
nowadays most things are tracked.
We are talking so much about AI this day and age. But what I think is happening in parallel, which is way, equally important, is sensor technology.
Yeah.
We can measure everything today.
Yeah, I wear an Oura ring,
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Heart rate variability testing, breathing. I mean, you could look at lung capacity stuff. It's so much.
I mean, my HRV last couple of
can't be good.
Nights
cannot be good.
It was terrible. I drank no alcohol yesterday. Didn't take the dessert. My HRV went.
There you go. And you still had a good time.
I did, yeah.
You're a lot more fun with a little bit of wine in you, for sure.
Yeah, but then my whoop tells me I'm an idiot.
I wouldn't have called you an idiot, even with the way you were dancing. So do you feel that from a data perspective, or like, let's back up. Someone goes through that decide framework, starting from a discovery standpoint, they embed it into their work, where it's like part of their mindset now, and it's part of their operational structure. It's the DNA now, right? It's part of the fabric of their company. Data mindset. So that becomes like how they operate. What type of returns do you see, medium-sized businesses making from having better data and better work? Is it also like even, workforce management? It's helping actually, like, does it help out from a staffing perspective? Because I would imagine when you start looking at this at a wide lens, right? This probably, it actually adds a actual ton of value to the company. Like the valuation of a company is more strong because they have clear data. Like I remember, like in acquisitions, one of the hardest part is like, is what they are saying to us true? And how do we know it's true? So like a cleaner data room is going to have a way higher evaluation, even if the data is good or bad. It's not even a matter of like, is it great
Did you hear me
numbers?
talking about bad data? For
Yeah.
me, that there's no problem.
No such-
as long as you have data,
That makes sense.
fine. It may not be at the level of quality you wanted. It's take us a couple of months. We'll fix it.
Okay.
I mean, you see, where is the bad data coming from? From your systems, because somebody has punched in the wrong number. Okay, we can really easily find those sources, and then you need to put some processes in place to go to those people.
Probably
listen,
right.
how about you be a bit more careful?
Sure.
Here,
I think there's always a lot of human error in that.
Let's not discuss data quality issues. I don't want to downplay it. A lot of people, that's a poor excuse.
Do you feel like it's a cop-out?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a poor excuse for not doing it. Okay. Now,
you got to put this into perspective. This is an area of weakness for me. This is an area that every time that it's being explored, I'm learning something new. Every time I open up this kind of can of worms as a thought, it's like a whole new technology came out that solves this problem again, and they overcomplicate it all the time. So for someone who's not in that space, you seem like you have all the answers, and I've seen the differences in dashboards, but it oftentimes comes down to like, do we trust this vendor versus what everyone else is saying? Because a lot of times people lean into the idea that they lean into the sales process instead of leaning into how can it help. And that's what most businesses do. That's how they get business. But at the end of the day, like a company that's had businesses for 32 years, you have to always be adding value to them in order for them to stay with you that long. And I would say, like, I want a business that's going to last 3 decades. And a business that lasts 3 decades is probably going to have an organizational system that everybody in the business is making better decisions because of the data.
See, I mean, that brings me back to the question you asked, what are mid-sized companies having? You would probably call it ROI. We call it ROA, return on analytics. Okay.
I got another word for A right now, but go ahead.
I mean, let's say on the simpler side. See, what you said, your team is also doing, spending a hell of a lot of time manually massaging, preparing the data.
We are, yes.
Fine. Eliminate it.
Okay.
To 95%. Eliminate it. So, but then you can say, yeah, fine, I'm just saving, I don't know, $60, $100 or an hour. I'm paying those people.
Oh, I mean, that's a lot of money when you think about it. Yeah. We feel it, and just so you, the rationale, and I like to banter this a little bit because I think there's value in your insights looking at it at a multi-million-dollar level versus like a smaller level and the single decisions. We look at it as far as organizing these data sets and like manually doing it. It educates them on the importance of this. We feel like it's super important for you to know this. So we want you to actually press that button.
See, and now let me give you, that's the smaller part of ROI, right? Exponentially bigger, or even more than exponentially bigger, is what I call value of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you a couple of examples.
I've heard you talk about this a lot, and it sinks in after a while. It takes a bit, though. Be truthful, it takes a little bit.
Let me give you a couple of ideas what value of knowing could mean, right? So for one of our customers, they are in the roadside assistance, right? And this is huge business. And they had kind of 80% of all the incidents they handle themselves with their own crew, and 20% they kind of outsource to local shops and things like this, towing businesses. And the first version of reporting we implemented for them, about 6 months later, they reported they could reduce external costs by 1%. Now, 1% per month of 80 million euro.
It's a nice salary.
Right? Now, another one. We didn't even do for that company, we didn't build a whole reporting system. What we didn't talk about, I mean, this whole thing with data stories or good reporting, you can implement this to be used on an ongoing basis. But interestingly enough, we also do projects for our customers where there is one time requirement. Let's say a strategy session on margin optimization is taking place in 6 weeks. We need insights. We go and develop dashboards and reports for that. We throw them away after that. But if they make decisions that would lead to a couple of 100,000, a couple of 100 million, they gladly throw that away, but they never do because they reuse them.
Of course.
Anyway,
Yeah.
right? So what we did for similar session with one customer, there's about 60 people in the, 60, yeah? 60 people in the sales force, right? And a new chief sales officers came on board, says, where's some potential here?
Mm-hmm.
So we had a couple of conversations, and then we designed a data story, and it was focused on cross-selling.
Yeah.
So we identified a cross-selling potential of 18 million, 18.
Wow.
Okay. Chief sales officer said, yeah, fine, 18 million, we won't do it, but I want half of it in 1 year. And she did it.
And they would have not seen that if it weren't for that.
No way.
So like you look at the opportunity cost of not knowing is actually a very big number.
What's the loss of, let's say I'm talking about value of knowing. Maybe we should be talking about the loss of not knowing.
I mean, I would say it's the sunk cost of being intellectually stubborn.
Yeah.
I'll let the smart people figure that out.
It's cost of not knowing. Yeah.
There you go.
Not knowing.
You gotta create a little number for it.
Right.
So number one, you've definitely opened. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations and we've never really directed them at me. And this has been very helpful just for me personally and for the businesses that I own and manage and operate. But also I have consulting clients that are running mid-sized companies and large companies as well. And they have teams of data analysts and they have teams of people that do this. And I could see that the teams that work the fastest are the ones that are the most clear. And I think what you're doing is you're removing any sort of friction around clarity. And I think it's super important. Yeah. And I think that if someone owns that, I think it'd be super valuable. I definitely think there's an exploratory option for people that really want to start the discovery phase. And I think that I would encourage people to do it. I think we will probably start that as well, just off of this. But being around you, like you are like the yin and the yang of like data to lifestyle Feliks, right? Like you're like the Dos Equis commercial over here, right? Most interesting man in the world. And then on this side, you're like, it's all about the numbers. Like golf. I mean, like cigar. I called it a night because I'm the young guy. So I decided to say, hey, I'm not getting put into this peer pressure, but I got videos, proof. I got data, and I've analyzed it. So you don't know this, but my aunt and uncle owned a salsa, merengue, bachata, dance lesson center. So I could move a little bit, and that's the Cuban in me, not the Irish in me. I didn't know you could move like that. Music, my goodness. Where like, is that just an escapism? All these other interesting things in your life, or like, is that kind of what's the deal?
No, come on. I mean, yeah, I love data. I love work. But there are also some other things that fulfill me. And sports, see, I grew up as a sports guy. I started with table tennis when I was 8, brought it to professional level till when I was 18. Then for me, see, at that time, table tennis was not really sports that you could make.
It's fascinating in the Olympics, by the way. It's like one of my favorite things. We started, fun fact, we start our warm-ups with our track athletes playing table tennis. Because what it does for the eye tracking, what it does is it removes anxiety. See, just so you know.
I'm making decision in table tennis in split of a second. Not in a second. A split of a second.
There's your speed for sure.
Right. Anyway, so sports was always super important part of my life. I mean, I cannot imagine my life without sports. And I mean, that's how what is like 30, 35 years ago, I became passionate about golf. Unfortunately, way too late. So I'm an okay golfer.
But you enjoy it, right?
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
I love it. And, there's just, I say nothing much better than having a round of golf. Doesn't really matter whether I played good or not, but then, sit down on the terrace, have a beer, and puff a cigar, have a conversation with my golf buddies about stupidest things, and all of a sudden it's midnight. And then we need to call up our wives to pick us up to go home.
Oh, mine's like, figure it out. She's gonna pick me up.
No.
But interesting. Now, are you on the like? I'm Cuban, so I have a little bit of a bias. But what's the cigar love language? Where do you normally go to?
I would usually go to Nicaragua.
Nicaragua, yeah. And I will say that the fine tobacco for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, but see, it's just these are things. But I would never. Well, sometimes at home when I'm waiting for my wife, and it's nice, and I go on a terrace, I puff a cigar, then I take a picture and send it to my sons, so that they can, so they can laugh at it. But I just love puffing a cigar with 3 other guys and having.
This is the perfect environment: mountains and
most meaningless.
Yeah,
most
cool.
meaningless. See, I was even last season. I was men's captain in our golf club. And that, I thought it was fun on one side. On the other side, I didn't have that much time for meaningless conversations because I'd have to organize the tournaments and then the ceremony at the end, make sure the drinks are there, make sure everybody gets.
That's a lot of logistical work. I don't know if I'm in on that.
I organized 19 tournaments last year. 19. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ!
Man.
Pulling money and making. See, but that's part of my life. I love it.
I enjoy it. Man.
I love it.
I got 3 questions I ask everybody, and I think that it's really cool. It's obviously within like my sports world. I love to hear that, but I really believe that these are like your superhero questions. And the first one is like, what do you stand for?
Integrity.
Okay, and in the context of your business or in your world, what does that mean?
Well, in the context of my business, it means that we went to our customers, we screwed up, went to our customers and said, sorry, we screwed up. We're going to make it up and you won't have to pay for it. But it also means that we fired customers. We fired last year 1 customer because they were not treating our team. And our team did very reasonable work, and they were not treating them properly.
Respect's a big deal.
And we fired them because, we lost, 15, 20% revenue.
Wow.
That's fine. Yeah, it's okay. The EBITDA at the end of the fiscal year. But it's also very satisfying sleeping well. And
doing it the right way matters. I'm a big believer, like I want to win, but I want to win the right way. You could cut corners and do it with the wrong people. I don't know if that's the reward I want to remember. The next question is what do you stand against?
What I stand against.
And if you looked at it the lens of data or looking at the lens of the business.
Cutting corners.
I call it, don't be janky. My dad's it's not the duct tape time,
I just can't have it.
Yeah.
And
that is a trait today that if it's passed down into the next generation, those kids will have a massive advantage because it is so lost. It is so lost. Last question is, what's your superpower?
My superpower is designing dashboards and reports.
So that you can make good decisions. One more for fun. What's your flaw?
What's my flaw?
If there was a reporting dashboard, of Feliks, right? What's the flaw?
I cannot withstand good food and good wine.
That resistance, willpower should not be the thing. That's funny.
That's
That's
just
awesome. I will say that yes, you are industry leading in the BI space and data analytics and looking at things and helping business make decisions. I could stand behind that because I've seen it firsthand. And I've also seen as when you look at like where your brain is to where AI is, and I get see how excited you get and all the stuff you got going on. It's exciting for me at your age, even though we, little different haircuts.
little.
Different, not too much different, but a little different haircuts. You got a little bit of wisdom on me. And you still seem young and excited about what this means for the future of business and data and decision making, because I think it empowers leaders. So I get excited to see that.
I mean, see, that's probably a separate conversation we could have. How I see the space of BI or the
Changing, yeah. 'Cause I think that there's an evolution that's going to happen.
I'm writing a book on that. It's going to be published
And I think the
soon.
conversation is going to be exciting. And I'll decide to pick it up for sure. All right. And read it. But I'm looking forward to the future, and I appreciate the work that you do. And I'm thankful for the friendship and the honesty that you always bring to the table. Whether I like the German version or the polite version, I appreciate it. But it's not the most impressive thing that you've done. The most impressive thing that I've seen you do is I've been able to interact with, you have kids, and I've been able to interact with one of them. And the most impressive thing to me is not just your working relationship, but the way that he represents the Golenko brand. Because in business, I think brand is everything. And that brand to me will live beyond multi-base, live beyond other things. To me, that's the most impressive thing about you. And you don't ever get a chance to probably see it when you're not around. But it's fascinating. And you got a lot to be proud of there. I will say that. So thank you for that. And it means a lot to me to be able to interact with you on that end. All right. Appreciate you, sir.